Okay, thank you for tuning in. For everybody out there, had some little technical difficulties. I'm going to try and get those ironed out. This is my first live stream under the Maverick Games Learning and Support Services YouTube channel. So I'm going to share this out. I'm not too sure how best to do that. Aside from going to the YouTube channel and doing it, I guess. So let's go there and see that this is all broadcasting. Looks like it is. I'll share this out. Thank you for your patience while I get some of these bugs ironed out. And I'll head over to my Facebook page as well. That's where I do most of my business these days. Well, not most of my business. Most of my business is done here, but most of my public outreach is done through my Facebook page. I don't have a website as of yet, which is very funny because I am a web designer. So, okay, here we go. Here we go. Keyframe frequency. Don't really know what keyframe frequency is. Stream health, poor. Seems to be running okay. Rupert, get down, bud. Interesting. Well, overall, I'll refresh this and see if that fixed itself. It did not. Keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. How do I fix that? Stream settings. close. Okay. Hmm. Well, let's go with this. A little bit of a rocky start. We're going to see how this plays out. Hopefully, it plays out okay, because this is, excuse me, this is my first live stream, and I'm hoping not to turn away a lot of my viewers who are tuning into this. So currently, it is telling me that I have a poor live stream quality, but I'll let the proof be in the pudding, I guess they say. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you are currently viewing this, please send out a message in the chat and let me know how the quality is. I'll have a quick check on mine right now. Seems to be okay, but again, I don't know what that looks like on the end user end of it. So that said, I'll plow ahead and see how this works out. Okay. There we go. Okay. So I am, well, let's just start off from the top. My name is Dwayne Morash. I am the founder, creator, and mastermind evil genius behind Maverick Games Learning and Support Services. That's a mouthful. Essentially, my day job is bringing support to young students with neurodivergency, specifically autism, who are on the autism spectrum. But I accept any and all students who want to come through my doorway to learn to socialize, learn a little bit of academics in the process, and play some Dungeons and Dragons. So my day-to-day life basically is crafting compelling stories for my students, trying not to get inundated with Dungeons and Dragons in my personal life, but also bringing some support to those kids who actually do need it, whether that be refining some of the educational learning that they get from school, or just coming together in a social environment. I like to think that Dungeons and Dragons can do all of that. So how I specifically do that is I craft Dungeons and Dragons adventures catered to their needs, and I look at my students and see what is going to excite them the most, just like a normal Dungeon Master does, and craft stories and adventures for them. What I hope to do with this channel is bring a little bit of that and a little bit of just my love for the hobby, to have that shine through in my content. I'm not here to make a quick buck. I'm not doing advertising, sponsorships. YouTube is not my primary form of revenue as far as earning a living in my life. So I look at it as kind of a supplemental part of what I do. And if it brings information out to people and content that people find compelling, quite honestly, my most exciting thing is just to see people consuming my content and having conversations about it. I'm not here to plug the YouTube algorithm and try and make some big fast YouTube coin, as they say. Just going to pause for a second to just check on the stream quality here. Seems to be holding up. I don't know if that that's going to translate into anything when we actually get it onto YouTube, but we'll see. So what's got me excited these days? For those of you who know me, you might not see it by way of my content, but I am on a little bit of a virtual table roadshow, is what I've started calling it. For the past 3 years, I've been doing deep dives into virtual tables and basically trying to find the best platform to bring to my students to play D&D with, because we're mainly online, or we are online. The virtual table for us for me is a very, very specific focus. I deal with a lot of children who have not only learning disabilities, reading, writing challenges in some cases, but just in general, technology can be sometimes a little overwhelming. So further to that, within Dungeons and Dragons, there's a lot of imaginative play that to me is very important not to dismiss. And in a virtual table, you can kill the imagination quite quickly if you're not using the right tools. With online D&D, it becomes very, very important that you actually connect with the gamers, allow them to play the game, but you don't kill the imaginative play. And that's something that I don't know if a lot of VTTs actually think about. In my virtual table roadshow, I've gone through a ton, whether it be Roll20. There's a few I haven't done, but I've done a lot, and with my eyes set on the new one that's coming out, that's also got me a little concerned. So this is where everything's kind of landed me with my current virtual table that I'm experimenting with, and it's called Alchemy RPG. And for those of you who use it, heard of it, yeah, it just landed on my plate. I didn't even know it existed. So this is cool. This is exciting, and I'm going to walk you through some of the reasons why I think it's something that you might want to bring to your players, and why I'm using it. So far, I'm using it this week. I'm rolling it out to my players this week to show them that we can have imaginative play with D&D. We can actually have theater of the mind experiences together without need of like a tactical battle grid virtual table. And some of the reasons why I think that actually having those kind of virtual table elements like 3D miniatures and stuff that's coming with the D&D table, that can actually be counterproductive. If I pause every once in a while, it's just to check that the stream is running well. So I apologize. As I get used to the technology, I'm sure I won't be pausing as much. So far, I'm getting an excellent connection on this stream. And I do have the chat up. So if any of you want to actually chat, feel free to type in the chat. Excellent. Okay. That window, I'm just minimizing my windows so that I'm not all windowed out. And I'll kill that. And I'll minimize that. And I'll maximize that. And here we go. Got all these windows open just to do a live stream. Okay. So welcome to Alchemy RPG. Alchemy RPG is, I guess as they say it, the first theater of the mind virtual table. And they weren't kidding. So if you haven't signed up on Alchemy, it's free. I think you just go to Alchemy VTT or alchemyrpg.com. And you can make an account. I'm using the Alchemy desktop app, which is different than the browser. The reason why I'm using the desktop app is I already have a ton of stuff that I access through my browser, and I just didn't want another browser window. So having it run in the app, and I think the app is a little bit more functional. I'm not too sure, but I believe that they add some functionality that the browser does not. I could be wrong on that. So right off the bat, the interface is just, I mean, that's my highest praise so far out of all the VTTs I've interacted with. This interface is very clean, very smooth, and whoever designed it put a lot of thought into accessibility as far as cleanliness and whatnot. So down the left-hand side, you're going to see some icons. Hovering over them, you see there's a home icon, which is where we are now. You have a library. And a library is where all your characters and all your games that you're running are going to be stored. Now, full disclosure, I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I run 5 Dungeons & Dragons games a week, and these are all ongoing campaigns. So my library will get filled up. Right now you see 3 of them. It's going to get filled up. So for me, there's a lot of bookkeeping involved as far as keeping all my notes and stuff straight. I do a good day on most days, and some days not so good. So some of my players will catch me forgetting details here and there. But hey, I run 5 games a week. So these are basically the games that I'm currently running. Now at the top, there's a character tab. Characters are an interesting, and you'll see as we get into it, but basically Alchemy allows you to import your D&D Beyond character right into the Alchemy system. Or you can go and create a character from scratch. They do have a compendium of sorts based on the SRD, and you can just make a character right within Alchemy itself. But if you do want to sort of cut through some of the time involved, just make a character on D&D Beyond and then import it in from there. And the way that you do that is you just go up to the Create a Character tab, and you drop down, you go Import from Beyond, and it's going to ask you for the URL of your D&D Beyond character, and that's located at the top of the website of the D&D Beyond website. You just paste it in there and import character, and it's going to pull it right in from D&D Beyond. So I'll show you what these look like while we're here. One of the things that I really love about Alchemy, I didn't say really enough times, so I'll say it again, really love about Alchemy, is their visual design. Artwork is what really drew me into the hobby when I was a kid, and for me that's a key component of Dungeons and Dragons, is just the beautiful artwork, as well as the inspiration that I get from it. So one of the things that Alchemy does really well is create compelling visuals. So I'm just going to click on a character and show you what it looks like when you actually view it. So right off the bat, they put character art front and center. To me, that's genius. That's something that a lot of ETTs could really learn from, especially if you're like me, where the artwork inspires. So I uploaded this picture. This is something that I uploaded. It's not a default one. So I found a piece of artwork that, obviously that somebody else created. But, in the advent of AI artwork online and stuff, it's not hard to find character portraits that match up with your player's vision. And sometimes, dare I say, this artwork can actually outpace the player's imagination. So it might be that you find a piece of artwork that just truly inspires them as well. And they say, yeah, that's exactly what I want my character to look like. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. I have run into some of my students who are very finicky about somebody else's artwork, feeling that they want to have their character look exactly how they imagine it in their mind. And that's hard sometimes, to have that flexibility. But anyway, there's lots of sites out there that they can pull artwork from, or if they even want to get a drawing themselves and draw it if you happen to have an artist in your group. So right off the bat, the basic stuffs are here. So you have your spells, your description. This is all pulled from D&D Beyond. And it's a very clean way to look at it compared to, say, the D&D Beyond interface. Everything's listed nicely with a sort of a slate background, white on slate, and it's all there. Now we'll get into how this looks when we're playing the game in a second, but right now this is sort of how the characters are laid out. And I'll just click on a few here just to give an example of what some of them look like. And right off the bat, that's going to inspire your players. When they click on their character sheet and they see a beautiful piece of artwork like that laid out with nice trimmings, it just fires up the imagination right off the bat, or at least it does with me. So that's characters. And that's located in the library tab. Universes is something that I just figured out, thanks to the Harpy Discord channel. And essentially, this is sort of where you keep all of your games. So you'll see here that I have a Dungeons & Dragons 5e universe. So when I click, and I created that by going up here and clicking on Create Universe. But when you go into your universe, this is where all of your content within that game system, I guess we should call it maybe, is going to exist. So right now I have a module. I don't know if I've done this right. I have this as a module, but I don't know if the module, I think the module is not the game adventure, but more of within the Dungeons & Dragons universe. These are, I guess, I don't know how to say it, maybe just source books, and each one would be different. So if I created a different book, it would have a different list of articles, NPCs, etc. So I might have to rebrand this instead of just calling it the Missing Spellbook of Vorn, which is an adventure that I'm doing. I should probably just rebrand it saying this D&D source book that I'm using. And then it would have all of this stuff. The reason why that's important is you can pull from your quote-unquote source book universe when you're creating your game. So if you have any content, so for example NPCs NPCs are just monsters and characters, but I've created a couple here. And so when I'm when I'm going to get to my scenes that I'll show you, I can pull entries from here. So if I've got something that I've created here, so for example, they didn't have a Yeti in the SRD. So I went and created a Yeti and put it into my universe, and now this Yeti is available for any games that I'm running within this universe. I have NPCs as well, and so I guess the idea is that a dungeon master can come in and build content outside of the game to be used. Double check, make sure everything's going good. Okay. I keep losing my chat box, so I'll do my best to keep it up here. I'm just going to do a test hello. Hello, everyone. Excellent. Okay. So moving along, there is a marketplace in Alchemy, and this would be the only weak spot if you were to consider it, because a lot of the VTTs out there will have publishing agreements with the different developers. With the different developers, whether that be Wizards of the Coast or Pazio and stuff. So, you know, you can buy pre-approved published content. In this case, no, that doesn't exist. So you have some publishers, but I think the goal of Alchemy is to actually start bringing in creator content. So as opposed to leaning on official content, because as we know that Wizards of the Coast is probably going to be tight in their grip on what they allow third-party publishers to use. I don't expect you're going to see a lot of D&D 6th edition content making its way into Roll20. I could be wrong, but they're going to pull things close. So I think leaning into creator-driven content is probably cool, and it's a very unique way to go. So that's the three basics of it. I'm going to go back to home, and I'm going to launch one of my my settings just so we can have a look at it. I'm going to click on one of my games, sorry, I should say. So right off the bat, it's going to pull in and it's going to ask you what microphone and camera you want to use. I have those tied up at the moment, so I'm just going to join the game without them. Excellent. Now, one of the things I realized that I should be doing is I should have a intermission one. So you'll have to forgive me while I go and check my phone. So what you see here is Alchemy's, pretty much your main interface is what this is. This is where you're going to be spending most of your time in Alchemy. And I'll walk you through how this works. So when you launch your game, you're going to land here. As a Dungeon Master, it's going to show you at the top. I'll work my way through all of this in different steps. So right off the bat, again, visual design is king. So when designing this, obviously they wanted to create a platform for inspiring players and DMs alike. So what you can do with this is you can actually go and put your own image here. And I've put this based on the adventure we're having called the Korite Mountain Cave. But you can actually go in and create scenes that you transition between with your players in your game. So rather than treating Dungeons and Dragons as this ongoing slog of constant real-time adventuring or real-time playing, you can break your game into scenes. So it's okay to do time jumps, fade to blacks, fade to the next scene, and that's sort of where they're going with this. So the current scene that we're in has my players exploring a wintry cavern to stay safe from the shelter or to get shelter from the storm outside. So I've created one called the Korite Mountain Cave. Now, something really cool about this, I'm going to show you, is when you click on your scenes are located in the lower right, and I've got 3 here. When you click on the scene, it shows you which one the players are currently looking at. The players don't have the ability to transition between scenes. So you have control of that, so they're not going to skip around and see all the fun stuff that's coming their way. When you click on it, it's going to prompt you to play the scene, which is to start up the scene. I'll show you why you need to do that. And this is what a scene looks like as you're setting it up. So you're going to go in, and it's going to prompt you to type in a name for your scene, a location in your game world. But here's some of the interesting ones. One, an environmental visual. So that would be the background, the image the players are going to be greeted with. And as you can see, it matches up with my cave. Then they have what's called a motion effect. Now, a motion effect is very cool. They've got them pre-built. I don't know a way to actually create your own motion effects, but I'm going to show you what a motion effect would be. It's an animated foreground element. So in this case, I'm going to put some snow. I put snow there, and you'll see what that looks like when I'm done. But it takes my flat image that I've uploaded and adds a foreground animated sort of overlay. Music as well. There's an option to have music playing to create a scene. The developers really wanted to really get your imagination fired up. Ambient sound. Now, I've uploaded sounds of wind blowing across a winter landscape. Again, just to create that sense of immersion. There's also something here called encounter music and encounter ambience, and when you switch into a combat scene, which I'll get to, it will also change the music on cue. I'm going to save this. I'm going to let you have a look at this now. You refresh this, and now we have snow. Now, this could be taxing on your system and or your player system because it is an animated overlay. So if not, you can always go in and just disable that. And the players, I think, can disable it as well. There's a setting somewhere that I might get to. But either way, that's an option available to you. That just immediately sucks players in. If you can get the right combination of an overlay, a motion effect, as well as a background image, and just let that sit there for your players for a few minutes, and you know, you can't help but have your imagination fired up. I'm going to turn that off just because I don't need that running, and I think from a system resource point of view, it kind of does get, oh, that's my game settings. It does get a little taxing, so let's turn that off. Go edit, and let's get rid of that motion effect. There we go. Okay. And actually, I'm going to X that out because I don't want to save that because I think I made a mistake. Let's edit. Okay. Yeah, so I'll just remove this. There we go, and I'll save that. Yeah, you can see that really puts a strain on the old system. Okay, so that covers scenes, and you can go and create multiple scenes and transition between them. I'll just give you a quick glimpse. Hopefully none of my players are looking, but I have a scene for my next encounter, which is them going deeper into the mountainous area. And that will take a second to transition to because of my RAM buffering. There we go. And I even created a third scene as well. And that third scene is for later on. So these are basically breaking your session into various scenes. Now, what I will show you is the moment-to-moment stuff. So this is what we call the overall scene, but then they have an underlay called encounter. So if your scene involves getting into an actual brawl or some form of a tactical encounter or something where you're going to need a map, because inevitably your players are going to want to see position if they aren't fully accustomed to theater of the mind. So at some point they're going to say, hey, I need to see where my player is. And so they've got you covered here as well. So at the very top, you're going to see a little circle here that looks like a DM screen. It's called Tactical Mode. So I'm going to go back to the Corite Mountain Cave. And so the Tactical Mode is built into the scene as well. And in fact, if we go back and we go to Edit, you'll see that that's a tab that I avoided. But right here under Tactical Mode, you have the ability to upload a map. And this tactical map exists in the scene, but in the tactical underlay or in the tactical mode, and you're going to see where. So I've uploaded a map already. It's there. I just have to transition to it. Wow, that motion effect really knocked the socks off my my RAM. So right now, we are in tactical mode. Now the players can go into this tactical mode on demand, so they can flip-flop back and forth. So the one thing you do have to be careful of is that if you are going to put a map in tactical mode, that you have to make sure that the players are going to look at it. So you could black it off with Fog of War if you wanted to, and you just want to have it sitting there. In this case, the map is ready to go. It's been gridded out. Now I got this map, I created this through Incarnate, or this particular one I did not, but it was made in Incarnate. And you can line up these maps to coincide with the grid perfectly if you need to. So if you create an Incarnate map with 40 by 30 squares, then you can go into this software, the Alchemy software, and tell it that it's a 40 by 30, so that the battle grid lines up perfectly. But here's our map, so the players can now get the best of both worlds if they really want to see where they are and stuff. And I've Fog of War'd this so they can't see beyond it. And in this case, it's a simple matter of just going in and clicking on the appropriate icons and bringing onto the table. So for example, I have an NPC already queued up here. There's a token button. I'm going to bring this guy into my map right here, and now he exists on the map and can be controlled. And likewise with the players, I'm going to go show. Likewise with the players, they could drag and drop their tokens onto it as well. It does support high resolution artwork. It doesn't downscale it too badly. So I do have the ability to zoom in and get a really good close-up look, which is what I love doing actually with virtual tables. I like to zoom in. I find that if you zoom in, you get a sort of a deeper appreciation for the intimacy of the game and the imagination with the artwork. Zooming out to me just looks like a chess game, and your brain starts to think of it as a elaborate game of checkers, as opposed to inspiring you with some cool artwork and environments. So yeah, that's sort of how my brain works with that. So that's how scenes and encounters work in the game. I'm just going to pause for a second and see if I've got anybody asking questions. I do not. I'm just going to check also on the stream and see if I've got anybody watching. Don't see if I have any viewers. Oh, I have one person watching, which is probably myself. There we go. So that's sort of how the encounter side of things work. Now, there's lots of minutiae as far as getting tokens and monsters on there, and I'll try not to dive into that. Maybe down the road I'll do a separate video for that. But suffice to say that Alchemy does support both not only your scenic theater of the mind scenes, but also your tactical gameplay as well. Where are we at here? So let's talk about how your characters get integrated into this game. I don't have characters in this particular campaign. So I'm going to go back and shift into a game where I do, so you can sort of see a little bit better example of what this might look like. So let's do that. I'm going to quit out of this particular game, and I'm going to go back to my library, and I'm going to go and jump into Shadow of the Dragon Queen. And this is one of my Tuesday groups, again, joining without the camera. So here we are, greeted with yet again a very beautiful, serene kind of image. In this particular campaign, the players were sailing down the Vingard River on the continent of Ansalon in my Dragonlance campaign setting. So I wanted a very serene, kind of feel-good kind of scene there for them to see. I've got a few scenes here queued up, and basically, you know, your imagination is your guide here. Whatever you feel is going to evoke that theater of the mind kind of reaction to everybody, that's what you want to use for your image. And music as well. You might want to start getting a folder set up on your desktop so you have a nice library of music and images. So in this case, I actually have some players. So I'm going to show you here. I've got one player here named Spyro. And so when I click on him as a dungeon master, I can go down here to view. And again, it pops up that beautiful portrait like we talked about prior. Yes, I know he's a dragon in the Dragonlance setting. It's kind of, I shouldn't have let him play a Dragonborn, but whatever. So again, that's all there. Now, the key element comes as a player. When he clicks on this token, he's going to actually have an option to actually make more use of his character. So let's break that down. Again, keeping with the theme, character sheets in Alchemy are basically kind of fade into the background. They're there, and all of the things you need from a character are there, but they're not putting it right in front of you like most virtual tables. They're not splashing this in your face and saying, hey, here's your character sheet and this spreadsheet of numbers and words and all this stuff. Like D&D Beyond is just a nightmare. It keeps it subtle and only shows you what you need. So in this case here, it pops up and shows that, hey, we have a character portrait, and we have his hit points and his experience points in a bar attached to his portrait, as well as his armor class down at the bottom there. So right off the bat, there's information being delivered, but not in an obtruse manner. If you take damage in this game and you want to adjust your hit points, you click on that bar and you can adjust your hit points up or down. Likewise with your experience points. So everything's nice and clean. His armor class will, or by clicking on the portrait, it'll pull up this. But let's look at some of the other things you need in D&D. So over here on the left-hand side, you see that there's actions, skills, and equipment tabs. And again, they're transparent and faded to the back. So when we go over here to skills, for example, all the skills that you see in the middle of that character sheet on D&D Beyond are right there now. Lower half, transparent, easy to see. They're not in your face. Same with equipment and gold. It's all there. So if a player needs to reference a piece of equipment, not too sure what's going on with it, he can go in here and he can actually click on something and go view, and it'll pop up and show it. Now, the cool thing about this is that if you want to add more visual elements to it, you can go in and attach an image to this studded leather or any items in your equipment list. You can go ahead and attach an actual image to it. This is great because, again, everybody sort of looks at their D&D Beyond character sheet and sees a big list of stuff, and they don't even know what half that stuff is. If they're curious, you can click on Hooded Lantern. Click on View. It has a description of the Hooded Lantern pulled from the SRD, but also you could go in and attach a picture to it. I think little things like that get overlooked in virtual tables, get overlooked in D&D in general. I know when I was growing up, you know, a lot of the stuff in the Player's Handbook equipment list, I didn't know what they were, you know, and they didn't have Google back then, so I had to ask questions, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of equipment that maybe I didn't know what they meant or what it actually, what did a mess kit look like? I still don't know what a mess kit looks like for an adventure. You know, wine skins, water skins, rations. How are the rations packaged up? What do they look like? Are they in a box? Are they in a big roll? I don't know. So you can go ahead and attach images for your players. I'm gonna go back over here to actions. Actions are interesting. Actions on the D&D Beyond character sheets are basically imported right from your equipment and stuff that can actually do attacks. Here, you're going to have to create actions, and actions are more like macros. You either love them or hate them as far as actions go, because in my mind, what a virtual table has done has reduced a lot of stuff down to a click of a button, and that's not always a good thing. So, for example, when I was younger, we would say, I'm going to attack with my sword. Well, we knew that the D20 never left our hand because that was the dice of D&D. So we would roll the D20 and then we would refer to our character sheet. We'd say, oh yeah, I get a +5 to hit with my sword or +3 to hit with my sword. We didn't just click a button. So a lot of this automation comes at the expense of player knowledge. Players don't know all these bonuses because they're just clicking a button. They don't know that there's a proficiency bonus, that there's a strength bonus or a dexterity bonus and maybe a magical bonus tied in there. They don't know that. They just know they're clicking this button and it's going to come up with a result. So actions are a way for players to reconnect with their characters and understand how all this math is going on behind the scenes. So I'll give you an example here when adding an action. So I've already got one pre-populated. I'll show you what that looks like in a second, but I'm going to go add action. So the add action button, you can go ahead and create an action and you just tell it. Let's just say swing sword. That can be the name of your action or macro. You can even go ahead and attach an image to it as well if you want. Now the type of action it is it's an attack. You can create different ones. Skill checks, just a general dice roll. So this is what this action is going to trigger. You can type a description in there, which I recommend. You'll see why. Type of action, and it pre-populates it based on proficiency. So it's a proficiency bonus of +3. So right off the bat, it knows, hey, he's going to get +3 if it's a proficient action. We're going to go here and tell it it's strength that I'm using. So it pulls the strength modifier from the character sheet. And if there's any extras like a magical bonus or a reduced critical, you can put it in there. You can even specify if it's a ranged attack, it'll pop up a range bracket. And then down here, you can tell it what dice you do for damage. I'm going to say 1d10. And again, you tell it what ability you're using to determine that. And we are done. I'm going to click on check mark, and it's now added it down here called Swing Sword. Once a player's gone and populated all their actions in here, I apologize if I'm not looking at the camera. It's my first stream, so I keep forgetting to look up. Once they've populated an action here, it's going to push to the journal. So I'm going to show you what this looks like right now, our newly created action. And just pause here really quick to make sure that I'm attending to any questions in the chat. None at the moment. Okay. So I've gone ahead and clicked on Swing Sword, and there's the use button, so we will use that. And you're seeing that now dice are rolling. Now, dice in a metaphorical sense, but in Alchemy, there are no physical dice rolling across the screen. I'm okay with that. I do like my physical VTT dice that roll up, like Roll20 and D&D Beyond, but I'll take this for now. I think you can get assets that turn these into dice, which would be really cool. So it pops up with an attack roll and a damage roll. So it does both at the same time. And yes, all VTTs have that functionality, except for D&D Beyond. Sorry, Wizards. But it does cut down on time. And if you are playing D&D online, there's a lot of little minor things that suck time out of your game, whether that be internet issues, technology issues, or just humming and hawing. Here it rolls both. You can click on this box to get a detailed breakdown. So again, the Swing Sword action, it'll tell you what your attack roll is on 1d20, a roll of 14. It shows you a breakdown of your modifiers as well as a breakdown of the damage in a very easy to read format. Again, Alchemy's presentation is just off the charts. A very dark slate background with red highlights and using that Nodesta format that they use for Dungeons and Dragons. And it breaks it down. So, you can say to your players, look, I want you to know how that occurred rather than just looking at the results. So they can click on it and they can see it. So that's important. And then you apply the results. Likewise with skills, that's the same thing. You click on the skill, you click on check, and it rolls it. Now, worth noting that it also does calculate in your criticals. So you don't have to fumble around going, oh, did it calculate the critical? If you roll a 20, it'll make a little noise that you rolled a 20. And when you click on it, it'll show you that, yeah, indeed, it did calculate your critical damage in that roll. So that's really cool, too. It takes away some of that extra little few seconds here, a few seconds there of explaining things and whatnot. So I really like that. Strength checks. Again, you just go over here. The added feature is here, if you click on dexterity, for example, it'll say, do you want to make a check or do you want to make a save? Because if you have a saving throw as part of your class and whatnot, it'll factor that in as well. Okay, so that's how actions, skills, and equipment work in conjunction with the character sheets. Everything's laid out really nicely, and you don't have to worry about having your screen cluttered up with all the stuff that you may or may not be using at a given moment. Further to that, on the player side, and I can't show you that now, they actually have a section called handouts. And handouts for players are a list of handouts that have been shared to the players, and it could be anything from maps to portraits to NPCs, whatever you want to make sure the players have access to as far as a handout will now reside in their handout tray. So, currently prior to this, I was constantly sending handouts to Discord images. There's no ability to put visual assets into D&D Beyond. So again, it was kind of like a jury rig type format to get visible assets in the player's hands, especially maps and such. They would either have to save them. It was just a pain. Now, Roll20 did a great job of that because they had a handout feature as well. But D&D Beyond currently does not. So again, there's a lot of things that some have that some don't as far as VTTs go. So far, Alchemy has really pulled it all under one hood. Now, speaking of that, let's talk about that. So, from a dungeon master point of view, a couple things that are important to me. One is, well, right off the bat, video and voice. So, to answer that question, yes, Alchemy does support video and voice, and it has a little pop out there if you want to see everybody, and you can close it off if you don't. Again, I love the design. Roll20, for example, yes, video voice, but unfortunately, they're on your VTT. Now, you can reduce Roll20 down to just having a name, but again, that just is another piece of visual information that exists on your screen. So you can close this off. Now, another thing that's important, and I don't know if the Wizards of the Coast virtual table are going to nail this, but the big thing for me is, where are all my D&D notes going? Where are all my campaign notes, my setting notes, just everything like that? Where are they going? So in Roll20, they have a spot for all of that, but the interface is the problem. When you're dealing with a lot of information, you need to have that accessible. And right now, Roll20 has that buried in what they call the handout section. So handouts are not only for players, but for dungeon masters to keep all of their world lore and such. So that's a challenge for me. Now, as a dungeon master, I have a couple things I can alleviate that with. I have a notes section. So notes is just on-the-fly stuff. If I'm playing a game and I need to make notes of things, whether that be effects or anything like that I just need to jot down, I can either jot it down in my trusty DM book that I keep with me, or I can jot it down virtually in this encounter. As well, story. So story is basically a archive for your adventure. You can type this out, you can add notes, and you can just go ahead and type your story in here. In full bore. You have scenes, that's the scene, there's your tactical, but for this scene I can type in full notes. I can have everything in here. I could copy and paste it from a published digital book if I wanted to, but it's all going to be there. Now, the only thing that I am not really happy about is that, and I've reached out to them on Discord, is that I really wish that we would have a format tool. So right now it's a copy-paste situation, but I don't have the ability to format. I can't embed images to help me with my organization. I can't do much beyond just type in a wall of text. So I hope that they change that in the future, because that's really important. But the fact that I can actually put in story notes right there is a real key thing. Other things like GM actions I haven't played with, but I'm assuming that they're just global actions that I can add in to save me time. Enemies and monsters and such, they all have individual actions that can be assigned to them, just like players do. So you don't need to use that for that purpose. But if you do have global things that you want, you can just go ahead and put it in there. On the encounter side is essentially going into combat mode. What it does is it pulls all the NPCs that you might have added into the game and puts them into an initiative bracket. Now, you have the option to have auto initiative turned on, which is another feature that I love. So rather than everybody stopping and rolling initiative, auto initiative, once toggled in the settings of the adventure, means that as soon as you click on that initiative thing, the game or the Alchemy software rolls initiative for everybody, including all their bonuses and such, and just assigns them in order. Just saves a lot of time. It says, here you go, here's the order you're acting, we rolled for you. Which again, like to me in my sessions, cuts out like 10 minutes of game time, because it takes them that long to roll initiative and figure out what order, and then also figure out what they're going to do. I won't go too far into that, but you probably know my pain. So that's essentially how the Alchemy tabletop experience works. There's a few settings here that I didn't touch on. You can lower and raise the volume for players who don't want that music in their ears constantly, so that's a feature as well. Searching, which will be a universe search, so if you have something listed in your universe and you want to be able to look it up, you can do that, especially in the D&D. So I can go class. This is basically like you're looking for a D&D rulebook, so I can go classes, character advancement. Here we go. I can click on this and I can view this, and it's basically got the rulebook built right into D&D, just like most virtual tables do, who have implemented the SRD or the official, but yeah, it's there. So that's something you can do as well. We already talked about the encounter tray, or the encounter option as well. So this is the table, and I forgot, I'll touch on this as well. Players do have the ability to text chat. So it seems like a minor thing, but believe it or not, I mean, again, not to keep hitting on D&D Beyond, but D&D Beyond does not have the ability to communicate in a non-verbal manner. So really, players who are just wanting to chat non-verbally, don't have that option in D&D Beyond. You have to default back to another third party. That's probably my biggest concern right now with the Dungeons and Dragons virtual table, is the fact that we have this amazing virtual table experience planned for us with Unreal Engine 5. Just looks amazing, but there are some little things that I hope Wizards realize. One, voice and video. You know, I would really hate for them to say, hey, default back to Discord if you want to talk and see your friends at the table. Are they going to implement Dungeon Master tools? Like, do I have the ability to archive adventures and pull them in? And if I've purchased some of the digital content from D&D Beyond, can I just click a button and have that imported into my virtual table? Especially being that right now they have characters, which is one aspect. They have encounters, and they have campaign, as well as all their digital content. So if I make an encounter using the D&D Beyond encounter beta tools, which is really cool, but if I make an encounter, can I bring that over to the virtual table? Or am I going to have a separate window open, catering to the encounter, a separate window for the characters, a separate window for my campaign? Is there a way that they're going to bring all of that together under one virtual table? So far, not Unreal Engine 5, but Alchemy has done that. They've got my voice and video, they've got my chat, they've got the characters, and they even have the ability to store my DM notes. So my encounters, my DM notes. So it's all there right now, just not using 3D virtual miniatures, which I would argue to say, you know, after having some hands-on time with Alchemy, do we need that? Do we need beautifully fully rendered miniatures on a table? And what is that going to do to the imaginations of your players? You might not think it, but I've experienced it, in that when you start dealing with miniatures and 3D elements, there is the possibility that the imagination takes a back seat and their eyes just do the work, and then it's down to whatever they see as opposed to whatever they imagine. So this was my really rough sort of go at a live stream today. If you're catching this on the back end and are just watching this not live, I totally appreciate that as well. But it was really great if you could join me on the live stream and catch some of my comments and stuff. I'm going to try and chop this up for the YouTube portion and clean it up a little bit and get that out to everybody. But again, I'm going to try this format. I think as I get better at it, you'll see less technical issues and less rambling. So thanks everybody for tuning in on this Thursday afternoon. Hope you all have a great day, and most of all, I hope you're having fun playing Dungeons and Dragons out there.